Welcome everyone to MailFuzz TV. I am Peter and today I'm going to be talking about Unreal Season 2 Episode 1. It's called War. What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Spoilers for the episode, as per usual. This is a Patreon sponsored review, so thanks very much to Board Now for making this choice. So we finished Season 1 a couple months ago. We're back. Season 14 of Everlasting, as well as Season 2 of the show we're actually watching. And some changes seem to have kind of happened. Rachel seemingly is now the showrunner, and Quinn is in the chat role. She's the executive running things from the layer above. But actually wanting to do things and get involved, unlike Chet, who just kind of came in occasionally. That said, by the end of the episode, of course, it feels like things have reverted. And it seems like Quinn's taken the role back of showrunner because she believes they're in a bit of a crisis and they have to get through a bit of a... Because, Chet shows up, and of course part of the plot here, the reason why it's called War is because it feels like Chet's going to war with Quinn. Not that he's angry at her per se, or that he's coming with a sense of hatred, he's just wants his kingdom back, which is actually something that I should start off by saying here, is that I think this is a pretty good episode. I think this episode takes a lot of the things that Unreal does and adds to them. I feel like I've probably forgotten a lot of the awful things that some of the characters said in Season 1 when they were exploiting the contestants to try to make drama, but it feels like it's worse this season. The way they talk about putting in the racist character, or the racist contestant next to sharing a room with a black woman, trying to create controversy. And then the part that really caught me off guard was when they started talking about a woman who I think they said was from Pakistan, but said, oh, maybe she has ties to bin Laden, and they're going to try and make her look quote unquote like a terrorist. And all the insensitive things that come out of that, because the audience won't know she's supposed to be that if she's not dressed this way, which is offensive on many levels. So there's a lot of that going on. But the first thing I want to talk about, and the one thing that I don't think I like very much, or maybe that's too strong. Maybe I'll just say I'm indifferent to it, because it seems like it's not a big deal now, because it's probably not going to come back. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it will come back. But during the opening of this episode, whilst we're seeing what Rachel and Quinn are doing, which is them celebrating, having booze, trying to sell the network, the executive, on the new bachelor, the new guy they've got coming in, which we'll talk about that, of course. Every so often it cuts to Chet and what he's doing, and he's lost a lot of weight, right? Which the characters point out when he shows up again later. Apparently that weight all went to Jeremy because he's gained weight, and that's a plot point. We see him stuffing his face with a cake at one point, and it's like, oh, this is meant to be a thing. He's put on weight. So somehow they've had two actors change their body shape between seasons. I'll assume that in Chet's case, or the actor who played Chet wanted to lose weight, and it was just kind of, timed between seasons, so they've worked it in. Whereas maybe the other guy, Josh Kelly, who plays Jeremy, maybe that was intentional. Seems like a weird thing. I don't know. It's just weird that two characters have significantly changed their physical appearance based on what happened, but it works in a weird way. But anyway, Chet is with a tribe, and he's topless, and he's putting face paint on, and he's hunting an animal, and there's people with torches standing about, and it's a tribal thing, and what? I did not know how to take this at all. Especially since it all just kind of boils down to him trying to regain his manhood, and he's coming back to take his kingdom, which is the show. He wants to fight for it, and he wants to play dirty and try and steal it back. But with not even out from under her per se. I mean, he kind of does some underhanded things as well, don't get me wrong, but he's kind of open with Quinn about, I'm coming for my show. He doesn't say this is war, but he effectively announces it in all but words. So it's okay, that's something we're doing this season. Don't know how to feel about this weirdly changed Chet and what he's going for here. Especially since it feels like in many ways he's still just Chet. He still just wants the girls in bikinis. He's still, smoozing with the guys and saying that he has to, do this like a man. And at one point he says to Quinn that women aren't supposed to, they're supposed to be nurturing and get pampered and stuff. He says a bunch of misogynistic stuff, and it's whatever. But so he's still Chet. It's not like he's suddenly this changed man with a new direction. He's just kind of focused. He's a bit more focused than he was before. So we've got that going, but we also have kind of a little bit, even before we got to that stuff, I was feeling a bit of a war between Jeremy and Rachel, where Jeremy's back working on the show because he needs his job. He's the camera guy. Um, he's the head of that department even because he has hiring and firing powers by the sounds of it. Um, he immediately like, is not putting up with any of her crap. He is quick to, you know, insult her. He says some pretty dark stuff early on where he like, if she's a danger to herself and others, he'll step in for the others, but he doesn't care if she hurts herself. Which she points out is a very dark thing to say. But this is the sort of thing where even though she's absolutely right in that moment, contextually in that moment, she's absolutely right. That was a dark thing for Jeremy to say. It's also kind of rich coming from her because we know her too well at this point. And also she says some of the worst things that she said throughout this episode after this. So it's hard to kind of like super simple. It's like, she's almost made her own bed, I guess is what I'm saying. She's made her own bed and she's in this situation now. That said, not that Jeremy comes across as the good guy who's fighting for like his own honor and he's just the entire time. He isn't. He's also a complete dick. There's a scene where she's given like a briefing to the crew, and he comes in and interrupts her, talks to the other guys, and then says, quite obviously, he was hoping to be caught and have her ask what to shut up because he's like, oh, sorry, we were just talking about the kill list. What is the kill list, you might ask? The kill list is the list of girls that are lightly getting thrown out early in the show, so the crew will all try and sleep with them. Is basically how they describe it. But he very quickly points out that he's gunning for hot Rachel, and then explains to Rachel that one of the girls looks kind of like her, but is hot. And it's very... I want to compliment this scene, actually, because it felt very authentic, just how like petulant this was. Like, just how uncomfortable you could tell everyone else was feeling, because this was him clearly firing a shot and trying to, like, humiliate her in front of everyone. And she storms out at the end of the scene, like, clearly ready to go fire his ass. And Quinn steps in and says, you can't fire him. He is a sexual harassment lawsuit waiting to happen. If we fired all the people that we had sexual relations with, we'd have no crew. Which I feel like they've not shown us them have sex with that many of the crew so far, but maybe they were implying that there's been a lot more off camera. But it's like, hey, you have to deal with this. Not that Rachel lets it go. Rachel instead walks up and fires one of his crew. She says, hey, who was asking for the kill list? And the pull focus guy is like, oh yeah, I was asking for it. And she's like, oh good, you're fired. And she smiles as she walks away, like feeling powerful, which is a big theme of this episode for her, and Quinn to an extent. They start off the episode with getting tattoos on their wrists that say money, dick, power. This idea that they feel empowered, they feel like they're taking what's theirs, what they want. They go to this party in Vegas, a private little party, to try and like schmooze some executives. And she's literally saying, as she's having sex with the new Bachelor's manager, she's loudly saying, hey, I'm the one who got the first black bachelor on the show. I'm making history. It's me. Which is really weird dirty talk, right? It's more about herself than she's talking to the guy she's having sex with. And it really kind of paints a picture of where her mind is right now. And it does kind of feel like in some ways she nuked her personal life so much at the end of season 1 with Jeremy and everything that went on, that she's retreating so hard into her work life and success in her work life to try and make her feel like, oh, that's not a big deal that I did all those things because I have the success, I have the power, I have the money, I have all these things. It feels like she's trying to make up for this and she's compensating. And honestly, it feels like she's lashing out throughout a lot of this episode. The way she starts barking orders at people and demanding things of them is very unlikable. Quinn looks impressed as she sees her doing it, but there's a scene here where she has Madison, who is now a producer. She's now doing the Rachel J job from last season. I mean, Jay's still there, but she's been given the task of interviewing one of the contestants, right? So like I said earlier, they sort of go through a few of the main ones on the board, and they show the racist ones got like the Confederate bikini on and stuff like that. And they want kind of the strong black activist character who is separate from what I'm about to say, but I'm just mentioning her because she's kind of important plot-wise, and it seems like she'll be a big deal going forward. But she is the one that Rachel has to go and convince to not finish college, or at the very least not graduate with everyone else, so she can come do the show. And kind of like even like tells her some things she's not supposed to, like tells her it's a black contestant, basically convinces her that the show will be good for her political movement, because she is, you know, she protests, she does things like that, and she thinks it's demeaning her on the show. But Rachel kind of uses some past reality shows that maybe help some movements and tries to like lure her in. So that feels quite skeevy. But the scene that I wanted to get to is there's another black contestant, another woman who they've referred to repeatedly as the black debutante. So you know, maybe gives you a sense of like the different types of characters we're dealing with. But she, you know, so she's a lot more of a girly girl kind of thing. But she is getting interviewed by Madison, and Madison has been told to get her to open up about something in her life, and we already know what it is. We already seen this, the characters talk about the fact that her fiance died in a car accident about 1.5 years ago. So they send Madison in and say, hey, get her talking about this. And Rachel even says, use, you know, something in your own life. Tell her your mum died or something to get her talking. And then Madison starts tearing up and says that her mum actually died. And she's like feeling all emotional about this. And Rachel says, good, use it, go. She's very unhumane. It's the whole thing. But Madison's sitting there with her, and Rachel's ready to get up and go and like barge in because Madison's not getting the job done. She's asking simple small talk questions. She's not getting any juicy sound bites because they want the hooks. They want something they can put in the TV spots, the ads. And Quinn has to step in and tell Rachel that she has to like delegate, otherwise the Madison will never learn. She'll never get good at this and become a new Rachel if she's never forced or pushed to actually do it. So instead of going in and doing it yourself, actually give her some instructions. Kind of like I'm doing with you now for my old job, right? Which was a good, and I'm saying all this out loud because I like that little sort of point she's making. It's like, hey, you were about to do something that you shouldn't do as part of this new role you're in, and I'm stopping you from doing it. I'm giving you advice, which is what you should be doing for her. I would say that literally dictating her lines to her in an earpiece is still just a bit too much. It's not really pushing her in any direction. But she basically just gives Madison things to say, and the things she's got Madison saying actually bring Madison herself to tears. Like, she's crying as she's saying things like, you know, why are you still single? And that's when the character opens up. I'm trying to find her name. There's a lot of new characters this episode. But when she's opening up about this and she's talking about how her fiance died, Madison is told through the earpiece to say, oh, you were driving? And she's like, yeah, I was driving the car. It's like, oh, so you killed him. And Madison doesn't want to say that, obviously. She's sort of tearing up, but she kind of blubbers it out. And the contestant sort of like says no, and she's like, so you didn't kill him then? And it goes through all this, and it all bubbles up to her finally saying the line, no, I can live again, or I'll die trying. And they're like, okay, there's her soundbite. And at the end of the scene, Madison gets up and walks past the camera, and Jeremy, who was on the camera, turns the camera around. He pans all the way around 180 so that Madison's on the screen for everyone in the control room to see, and she vomits. And he says, oh, Madison, I'm sorry Rachel made you do that. So regardless of how shitty he was being earlier and how petty he was being with some of his antics, it did kind of feel like here he was kind of looking out for someone who he thinks Rachel's now possibly going to like manipulate and make their life worse. But to his surprise, when Madison like stands up from vomiting, she says that was awesome and walks off. And obviously that's kind of, well, it's almost playing into like a running theme with Madison where you think one thing about her, but it turns out she was just got like, you know, in the same way that it was like, oh, is Chet manipulating her into sex? But then it turns out no, she was game. Like she was interested for some reason. You know, it feels like we keep doing this with her where we think, oh, she's going to be broken by what the other characters are doing, but then she ends up being like inspired by it or by wanting to go further down the rabbit hole with what they're doing. And it's kind of interesting just to see the reactions of both Jeremy, who's kind of clearly disappointed that that's Madison's reaction. Maybe one, because he actually thinks it's sad that she's maybe turning to the quote-unquote dark side that Rachel's on with all this manipulation. But also in a selfish, petty way, I think he's also just sad that, oh, I thought I was getting to be the hero there and be the good guy because Rachel's the villain in my story, but it turns out this person that I thought I was going to comfort is fine and didn't and isn't bothered by what Rachel just did. I think that probably hurts him a little bit. On different levels. What some on the selfish petty level because he wants to be the good guy, and then some on the actual. It's actually quite sad that she maybe is going down the path of Rachel, and this was just the first steps towards her becoming that. It could be curious over the 4 seasons to see like where Madison is, assuming she's still around in season 4. Like, is she just like Rachel at the start of the show by the time we're done? I don't know, but that's interesting to me. So yeah, I just all of this stuff like felt super dark, of course, and just like emotionally manipulative, which is the name of the game. I mean, all this even started because Madison was asked by the racist blonde woman that she wanted to switch rooms because she didn't want to share a room with a. I mean, she didn't say she didn't want to share a room with a black woman, but that's that's clearly what she was getting at. She was talking around it as much as she could. And Madison came to say, "Hey, I was going to move her into this other room that's got a spare bedroom. Is that okay?" And Rachel chews her out for her. It's like, no, we want them to fight. We want drama, and then we point. We're not solving problems. We're creating problems and then filming it. That's what we're doing here. So I think all of this stuff was super interesting, seeing Rachel in this role and frankly be downright unlikable for the vast majority of it. I think it's this sort of thing where in season 1, obviously she was manipulating people a lot and you sort of felt a little sad whenever she would sort of like go further down that rabbit hole. There was always this humanity to her as well, where it felt like she was struggling with the guilt of it and sort of deciding how she felt about it and like, maybe doing something good here or there. So there was still someone to root for or maybe hope that she would do something better by the end. But instead, what seems to have happened because of season 1, like I said, is that she's almost like put a wall up and become worse in sort of retaliation to the genuine things that were potentially good in their life, whether or not they were actually the right, was it, should she have ended up with Jeremy? I'm not convinced she should have done because the relationship was already kind of in a weird place where he believed one thing and she wasn't super into it. I'm not saying she should have ended up with him. That also feels like a mistake for a lot of reasons. It felt a little bit delusional in some ways on his part, but I don't. This idea that her response to the hurt that she caused, and rather than perhaps accepting kind of like the person she is and what caused all those things and the decisions she made that caused them, she's kind of put this wall up and sort of like accentuated all of the more negative things to shield herself from everyone around her, to become harder and whatever you want to call it. So I think that's like a really good character development, and it is interesting as well. I think I want to say it was Jay who has a conversation with her, and Jay so far in this episode I thought was quite interesting because he kind of disappeared towards the end of season 1, but here it felt like he was kind of sticking up. It's almost like he's the moral, I won't say compass, but like he's definitely reacting to like how awful like the others are being about some of the people, and he didn't want to push the young black woman who's just about to finish college to like give up that to come and be on the show. He actually would rather support her being successful in the path that she's on as opposed to coming on and doing this. And the manipulation doesn't work on him, and you think, oh, maybe she'll be smart enough to not be manipulated by Rachel, but it still kind of happens. She still is able to find the right buttons to push to make her want to come on the show. But one of the things that Jay, I think it was Jay anyway, I can't even think of who else it would be, he kind of accuses Rachel of like, why are you back? Like after everything that Quinn did to you. And Quinn did some stuff to Rachel in the last couple of episodes, and I talked about how that felt like Quinn was overstepping and maybe Rachel should have a problem with that. And it seemed to make them bond even more. But Jay kind of compares it to like an abusive husband and like the wife that keeps going back to him. And sort of says that Rachel is going back to Quinn, and that basically saying that Quinn is this horrible influence on her in some ways. And I think that might be a little too simplistic, but it's definitely something that I pondered as well, with Quinn intervening in the start of the season finale. It's like she wouldn't let Rachel make her own mistake. And I don't know, there's some interesting things there to maybe keep an eye on. And because I think it's very easy to see, okay, these two women getting tattoos together, they're all kind of girl power with each other, but is there actually something negative about this relationship and the power balance between them? And as much as Quinn is constantly fighting assholes like Chet, is it possible that she's, even if she's not realized it, she's learned too much of that behavior, and there's kind of a toxic element between her and Rachel as well? Is it, you know, and it's not to say that it's just that. I'm not saying that like it's just this one-sided thing that's really, really bad. But I'm saying that like even if there is genuine friendship there, and there is genuine kind of like, you know, mentor and like apprentice or whatever you want to call it, sort of vibes between them, is there also some level of control? Because at the end of the episode, after like Chet's made his moves, and they're like, oh, is sort of forced his way into being a part of this by being buddy with the Bachelor and making him not show up for the first night and all that. Quinn takes control of the show back and promises Rachel that she will, you know, she'll give it back over once they're out of this crisis with Chet. And I couldn't help but feel that this promise, and then the final sort of sad look in Rachel's face before the episode ended, it reminded me a lot of Chet promising Quinn things, and that, you know, eventually you'll get all the things you want. I'll leave my wife, and you'll be the main woman in my life, and you'll have, you know, your own show and or whatever. Like, it felt like a lot of those same failed promises, which goes back to what Jay said of like, oh, you're like a wife in a relationship where the husband keeps promising that he won't do something again, or giving you false promises of better things to come, and it just never happens. I think the end of the episode with Quinn and Rachel really reminded me of that. And it's not so much that I think Quinn is intentionally lying to her. I think it's just this thing where no matter how much she genuinely believes that when she says it, she's probably like not going to follow through. There'll always be some reason for her to step in and not give it up. And Rachel might become bitter over time that she just keeps not being given what she was promised, or, you know, something to that effect. Like, I feel there's a lot of things going here where Quinn's not realizing that she's maybe starting to be guilty of some of the way Chet was with her. It's just not a sexual relationship in the same way, but there's still some things there. Those power imbalances still exist. So I think that's like one of the more fascinating bits of the writing in this episode that I really like. And obviously we've not even talked about the fact, I mean, I've mentioned it briefly in one bit, but like, yeah, like the Bachelor this time is a black guy. It's the first time they've done it, which they did have to point out to me. I get that, like, there's a lot of shows and stuff and a lot of things where it just didn't happen for a long time, and it's a first. But you know, this is 2016. This season came out. It's not really that like something I would have assumed they hadn't had before. But yeah, they straight up having the TV executive saying, "Oh, he's a black man. We can't have that." What? And basically Quinn promises him controversy, that him being with a bunch of white contestants is going to create like a lot of social media like conversation for better or worse, blah 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 blah. Again, it's all been exploitation. It's like, hey, we're doing this thing. Rachel's proudly yelling during sex. She's proud that she's accomplished this. But then it's all about exploiting it. It's all about pushing the drama as much as they can. It's about encouraging the outrage over the people who will be mad about this. It's about having contestants who will feel conflicted about this. They specifically get a racist woman because they want the drama of her reaction to it, which we've not had yet because they've not met the Bachelor yet. We'll get that next episode, presumably. So, like, all of that is just the show doing what the show does. It's taken a new idea and worked in this blanket thing here. The actor who plays the new Bachelor, what's his name here? Darius Beck is the character's name, but he's played by BJ Britt, who did look familiar. He was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. As a character called Triplet, and that is definitely what I know his face from. I may have seen him in something else as well, but that's definitely the main thing I know him from. Which is funny, because Quinn, Constance Zimmer, was also in that show, if I remember correctly, and you're from S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. So that's just a funny little coincidence, but and he's also kind of famous. I mean, so was Adam, I guess, because he was like part of the royal family, but this is oh god, what sport was it? I think it was American football. I think he was a quarterback, they said, but not that it really matters. He's a sportsman, okay? So that's his thing. And he's like, you know, doesn't know what he's doing. We get a scene early on where Rachel kind of sweet talks him into like sticking to the show because he's already starting to doubt it. Oh, should I do this? Should this be something I do? And Rachel, it's just showing Rachel be good at what she does, because she sweet talks him, makes him feel better about the thing that he needs to fix his PR image over, which wasn't really a big deal. A reporter talked to him right after a game, and he said, "Bitch, please," and walked away. and people said, oh, he called the reporter lady a bitch, and like pretty much everyone agrees that that's really just a phrase. It's not really him calling her a bitch and blah 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 blah. But like, and he talks about that as well. He talks about growing up and having to, not wear his hood up because he'll look like a hoodlum, or so on and so on, and dealing with the racial bias and the profiling and that kind of thing, and how that adds maybe a different kind of element to him having to repair his PR here, like his public image, because it's like he really shouldn't have to. What he did isn't really that big a deal. It doesn't matter that much, but he kind of has to. So he's in this circus with all these people doing this show. But it gives us a sense of his character, but it also gives us a sense of how good Rachel is at sweet talking the contestants, and she's got a bit more of a personal stake in it now because she is the showrunner. At least she was at that point in the episode. Things have changed a little bit by the end. But, yeah. That was a good episode. I'm curious. Obviously, I haven't really gotten to know a lot of the new contestants yet. Like I said, there's Hot Rachel, which Quinn calls her that as well in front of Rachel, and that might become a running joke. I did laugh at that. I thought that was funny. And her name, annoyingly, there's a whole scene early on where you hear her like correct someone's pronunciation of it because it's spelled Yael, and she says that people incorrectly say Yale, but it's something else, and I cannot for the life of me remember what she said. Yale? Yal? I'll pick it up next episode, right? It takes me a few episodes to remember the names properly. But that one's funny. Just in the sense that it's funny that I can't remember it when she specifically pointed out the mispronunciation. So yeah, and we've got a few other characters we'll get into, and I'll know them more than just the descriptors that I've got for them. But yeah, as far as the start to the second season goes, it feels like they're doing some different things. It feels like we've got some new ideas at play, and we're dealing with even more kind of hot social and political topics being mixed in with just how insensitive the characters are being. Well, Quinn and Rachel, really, when I say that. Maybe Chet as well. He didn't really do much this episode other than say he wanted bikinis, but I'm sure he will at some point. Very fascinated to see where this goes with all that stuff throughout the season. But that is my thoughts on the first episode of Season 2 of UnReal, and I'm looking forward to episode 2. So let me know what you thought of this episode in the comments. If you've seen it, like, subscribe, all that stuff. Helps out a bunch if you do. Of course, you can support the channel over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, or if you'd rather support via YouTube membership or YouTube thanks, any support is greatly appreciated and help keep everything coming, both here and over at MailFuzz Movies, where all the movie podcasts live. Go check out those. People are very upset at the Star Wars Revenge of the Sith review. Were people expecting me to suddenly like that one? I don't know. But thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?